In Davos, Switzerland last week, Prince Charles addressed the World Economic Forum and outlined a 10-point plan to help the global economy become more sustainable, including the imposition of green taxes and investing in environmentally friendly technologies. He also took time out for a photo op with Greta Thunberg, the 16-year-old darling of the left, who hectors the world regularly on her view of climate change. Prince Charles, who, to be fair, has not come to that game lately. He has been pontificating for much of the last 3 decades on the subject. He doesn't seem to care that there's no evidence to support his position. But he soldiers on with mind-numbing logic. But then he left Princess Diana in favor of Camilla, so it could be said his judgment is questionable. But the worst part is the reality behind the scenes of how he acts versus what he says. So, let's look at what he actually did in the past 2 weeks. He was in Vienna, so he had an empty plane dispatched from Scotland to collect him. The plane then took the prince to Muscat in Oman, where the prince paid his respects to the new Sultan of Oman. The plane then returned empty to its base in Vienna. Another plane was then dispatched from Luton, just north of London, to Muscat to collect the prince. Apparently, this all occurred because the crew of the original plane had exceeded their allowable flight hours. The new plane then flew the prince from Muscat to Sandringham to meet with the Queen to discuss his wayward son Prince Harry's abdication of his duties by decamping to Vancouver Island with Meghan Markle. Prince Charles then took a helicopter 131 miles from Lasham Airfield to actually meet the Queen in Norfolk. After the meeting, he took another helicopter from Norfolk 192 miles to Scotland and then jumped on another helicopter to Lasham Airfield, a distance of approximately 262 miles. From Scotland, he then jumped on a private flight to Davos. And after a photo op with climate doyenne of the left, Greta Thunberg, he then flew to Israel later the same day. In that period, empty planes flew more than 16,000 miles on errands for the prince. Think about that. That alone produced an estimated 162,000 tons of carbon emissions, which would have taken a small city in England almost a year to generate that much carbon, let alone to do it in a fortnight. And it's not just Prince Charles. We need only look at our own Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. Last year he took, by my count, 204 flights on taxpayer-funded aircraft. Given that there are only 365 days in a calendar year, and he took more than 40 personal days and 10, at least, vacations, and there are 104 weekend days in a year, one might ask, when did he actually work? Yet, he lectured Canadians ad nauseum about climate change, declared a climate emergency right in July, right before taking off to Tofino on Canada's west coast for a surfing holiday, and then he imposed a carbon tax on the rest of us poor vassals. And then, this week, after some stellar reporting by the rebel Sheila Gunn Reid, we learned that the newly anointed Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland would fly to airports like Toronto and Montreal and send her chauffeur-driven limousine empty from Ottawa to meet her wherever she was going. There's a special sort of arrogant entitlement for someone to do that, and most especially for a minister of the Crown in a government that has financially penalized the nation for no good reason other than for their own ideology, to which clearly they don't actually adhere. Whether it's Prince Charles, Justin Trudeau, or Chrystia Freeland, the message is the same. Do as I say, not as I do. For True North, I'm Leo Knight.